I'm so glad you're here with us today. We're diving deep into A Course in Miracles, and if you're just joining our community, you might be wondering what this course is all about. I'd love to invite you to check out the very first video on this channel, where I break down exactly what A Course in Miracles is, how it came to exist, and why it's been transforming lives for over 5 decades. It'll give you the perfect foundation for everything we explore together here. Now, let me ask you something. How often do you trust what you see? I don't just mean with your physical eyes. I mean your perception of situations, of people, of yourself. How often are you absolutely certain that you know what something means, that you understand what's really happening, that your interpretation of events is the correct one? Most of us live our entire lives trusting our perception implicitly. We see something, we interpret it, we react to it, and we never question whether we might be seeing it wrong. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Your perception is unreliable. It's filtered through layers of past experience, unconscious guilt, fear, and the ego's constant need to prove that separation is real. You're not seeing things as they are. You're seeing things as you are. And the gap between those two realities is where all your suffering lives. Think about the last time you were convinced someone was attacking you, judging you, or rejecting you. You saw it so clearly. The evidence was right there in their words, their tone, their expression. But what if you were wrong? What if what you perceived as attack was actually fear? What if what you interpreted as rejection was actually a call for love? What if your absolute certainty about what you were seeing was the very thing keeping you trapped in pain? This is what today's exploration is all about. We're looking at one of the most liberating sections in A Course in Miracles, sharing perception with the Holy Spirit. And the reason this section is so powerful is because it doesn't ask you to fix your perception. It doesn't give you techniques to see more clearly or strategies to interpret situations better. Instead, it offers you something radically different: the invitation to stop perceiving alone. You've been trying to figure everything out by yourself. You've been working so hard to see clearly, to understand what's real, to know what things mean. And it's exhausting, isn't it? Because no matter how hard you try, your perception keeps betraying you. You keep getting it wrong. You keep seeing attack where there's fear, seeing guilt where there's innocence, seeing separation where there's only love asking to be recognized. But what if you didn't have to see alone anymore? What if there was someone who could look at every situation with you? Someone whose vision isn't clouded by fear or guilt or the need to be right? What if you could share your perception with the Holy Spirit and let Him show you what's really there? This isn't about denying what you see or pretending everything is fine when it clearly isn't. This is about recognizing that your interpretation of what you see is what needs healing. The Holy Spirit doesn't change the situation. He changes how you see it. And when your perception shifts, everything shifts. The beautiful thing is, you don't have to work at seeing differently. You don't have to strain and struggle to achieve spiritual vision. You simply have to be willing to admit that you don't know what anything means and you need help seeing truly. That willingness, that humility, that openness, that's all it takes to begin sharing perception with the one who sees only truth. Today, we're going to explore why your perception can't be trusted, what the Holy Spirit sees that you cannot, and how to actually practice sharing perception in your daily life. This is going to shift something fundamental in how you experience reality. So let's begin. Let's start with something that might be hard to hear. You don't see reality. You never have. What you think you're seeing when you look at the world, at other people, at situations unfolding around you, that's not what's actually there. You're seeing a projection of your own mind, filtered through the ego's lens of separation, guilt, and fear. And the ego has a very specific agenda. It wants to prove that you're separate, that you're under attack, and that you need to defend yourself. Here's how it works. The ego's perception is built on a foundation of guilt. Deep in your unconscious mind, there's a belief that you've separated yourself from God, that you've done something terribly wrong, and that you deserve punishment. You're not consciously aware of this guilt most of the time, but it's operating in the background of everything you perceive. And because you can't face this guilt in yourself, you project it outward. You see it in other people. You see it in situations. You see attack, judgment, and threat everywhere you look because that's what you're unconsciously expecting to find. This is why two people can witness the exact same event and perceive it completely differently. It's not that one person is right and the other is wrong. It's that they're both projecting their own internal state onto what they're seeing. If you're carrying fear, you'll see danger. If you're carrying guilt, you'll see condemnation. If you're invested in being separate, you'll see differences and conflict. Everywhere. And here's the really tricky part. You want to see what you're seeing. The ego has an investment in maintaining its version of reality, because if you started seeing truly, if you started seeing innocence and love and unity, the ego's entire foundation would crumble. So the ego works very hard to convince you that your perception is accurate, that you're seeing clearly, that you know what things mean. It makes you absolutely certain about your interpretations so you won't question them. Think about how stubborn you can be about your point of view. Think about how hard it is to admit you might be seeing a situation wrong. Think about how much energy you put into defending your perception, proving that you're right, making sure everyone knows that you saw what you saw and you know what it means. That's the ego talking. That's the ego protecting its investment in separation. The Course tells us that perception is interpretation, not truth. You're not passively observing reality. You're actively constructing it based on what you want to see or what you fear to see. And because your perception is rooted in the ego's thought system of separation, it can't show you what's real. It can only show you illusions. This is why trying to see clearly on your own is exhausting and ultimately impossible. You're trying to use a faulty instrument to measure reality. You're trying to use the ego's perception to see past the ego's illusions. It doesn't work. It can't work. It's like trying to see in the dark and getting frustrated that you keep bumping into things. The problem isn't that you're not trying hard enough. The problem is that you need light. And that's exactly what the Holy Spirit offers. Not better perception, but a completely different way of seeing. Not a slight adjustment to your viewpoint, but a total shift in vision. Because you can't fix perception from within perception. You need help from beyond it. This is the first step. Recognizing that you don't see truly, and you can't see truly on your own. And that recognition, that humility, is what opens the door to real vision. So if your perception can't be trusted, what's the alternative? This is where the Holy Spirit's vision comes in, and it's completely different from anything the ego could ever show you. The ego looks at the world and sees separation, conflict, guilt, and fear. The Holy Spirit looks at the exact same world and sees only love, or the call for love. Same situation, completely different interpretation. And the difference between these two ways of seeing is the difference between suffering and peace. Let's be clear about what the Holy Spirit sees that you cannot. The Holy Spirit sees innocence, always, in everyone, in every situation. No matter what the ego is screaming about, no matter what your perception is telling you, no matter how convincing the evidence of guilt appears to be, the Holy Spirit sees only the truth, that nothing real has been damaged, that love is still whole, that the separation never actually happened. The Holy Spirit sees past all the ego's theatrics, past all the drama and conflict and pain, straight to the changeless reality of who you really are. The ego's perception is always about the past. It takes every new situation and filters it through old wounds, old grievances, old patterns of fear. You meet someone new, and the ego immediately starts comparing them to people who've hurt you before. You face a challenge, and the ego pulls up every failure you've ever experienced. The ego can't see anything fresh or new because it's constantly projecting the past onto the present. But the Holy Spirit's vision is always now. It doesn't carry the past into the present. It doesn't judge based on what happened before. It looks at this moment, this person, this situation with completely fresh eyes and sees only what's true right now. And what's true right now is always love, because love is the only thing that's real. Here's what's so beautiful about the Holy Spirit's way of seeing. He doesn't condemn your perception. He doesn't shame you for seeing wrongly. He doesn't tell you you're bad or foolish or blind. He simply offers you another way to look. He's infinitely gentle. He knows you're doing the best you can with the vision you have. He knows you're trapped in the ego's perception and you don't know how to get out. So he stands beside you, looks at what you're looking at, and quietly shows you what else is there. This is what it means to let the Holy Spirit correct your perception. You don't have to force yourself to see differently. You don't have to pretend you're not seeing what you're seeing. You just have to be willing to say, I don't know what this means. Show me how to see this. And in that moment of willingness, of surrender, the Holy Spirit begins to shift your vision. Think about a situation in your life right now that's causing you pain. Maybe a relationship that feels broken, a person who seems to be attacking you, a circumstance that feels overwhelming. You have a very clear perception of what's happening. You know what it means. You know who's at fault. You know how wrong it all is. That's the ego's perception. Now imagine inviting the Holy Spirit to look at it with you. Not to fix the situation, but to show you what you're not seeing. What might he reveal? What innocence might be there that your ego can't perceive? What call for love might be hiding beneath what looks like attack? The shift from ego perception to Holy Spirit vision isn't something you do. It's something you allow. You stop insisting on your interpretation. You stop defending your point of view. You stop being so certain that you know what everything means. And in that space of openness, of not knowing, the Holy Spirit can show you truth. This is the gentleness of surrendering your viewpoint. You're not giving up discernment or wisdom. You're giving up the arrogance of thinking you can see truly through the ego's eyes. You're admitting that you need help, that you want to see differently, that you're willing to be wrong about everything you thought you knew. And that willingness is all it takes for vision to begin. Now we get to the practical part. How do you actually share your perception with the Holy Spirit? This isn't some mystical, complicated spiritual technique. It's actually incredibly simple. But simple doesn't always mean easy, because it requires something the ego fights against with everything it has, willingness to be wrong. Sharing perception with the Holy Spirit starts with a single phrase, a simple prayer that changes everything. help me see this differently. That's it. You're not asking the Holy Spirit to change the situation. You're not asking Him to make the other person behave better or make your circumstances more comfortable. You're asking Him to change how you see it. You're admitting that your perception might be distorted, that you might be missing something, that there might be another way to look at this that you haven't considered. Let me give you an example of how this works in real life. Someone says something to you that feels like criticism. Your immediate perception is, they're attacking me, they're judging me, they think I'm not good enough. That perception brings up defensiveness, hurt, maybe anger. You want to defend yourself or withdraw or attack back. But before you react, you pause, just for a moment. And you silently say, Holy Spirit, help me see this differently. Show me what's really happening here. And then something shifts. Maybe you suddenly see that this person is afraid. Maybe you recognize that they're projecting their own insecurity. Maybe you realize they're asking for reassurance in a clumsy way. Maybe you simply feel compassion where a moment ago you felt attacked. The situation hasn't changed. Their words are the same. But your perception of what those words mean has been transformed. And when your perception changes, your entire experience changes. This is what shared perception does. It heals not by changing external circumstances, but by revealing what was always true beneath your misperception. It shows you innocence where you saw guilt. It shows you fear where you saw attack. It shows you a call for love where you saw rejection. And suddenly, you're free to respond with love instead of reacting from fear. The practice of shared perception is especially powerful in relationships. Every conflict, every hurt feeling, every moment of disconnection is rooted in misperception. You're seeing the other person through the ego's lens of separation. You're interpreting their behavior through your own fear and guilt. You're convinced you know what they meant, what they intended, who they really are. And all of that perception is keeping you trapped in suffering. But when you invite the Holy Spirit to look at this person with you, when you're willing to see them differently, something miraculous happens. You start seeing past their defenses to the fear beneath. You start seeing past their attacks to the love they're asking for. You start seeing past all the ego's drama to the innocent child of God who never stopped being whole and perfect and loved. And here's the beautiful part. When you see them truly, it becomes easier for them to remember who they truly are. Your vision calls forth their innocence. Your willingness to see with the Holy Spirit creates space for them to step out of their ego and into truth. Shared perception doesn't just heal your experience, it heals the relationship itself. The peace that comes from no longer defending your interpretation is profound. Think about how much energy you spend trying to prove you're right, trying to make sure everyone knows your version of events, trying to defend your perception against anyone who sees things differently. It's exhausting. But when you share your perception with the Holy Spirit, you don't need to defend it anymore. You're not attached to being right. You're open to seeing truly, whatever that means, and that openness brings immediate peace. This is the journey from separation to union. When you perceive alone, you're separate, from truth, from others, from God. But when you share perception with the Holy Spirit, you're perceiving together. You're joined with truth. You're seeing with the vision of love. And in that shared seeing, you remember that you were never really separate at all. The invitation is always available. In every moment, in every situation, with every person, you can choose to see with the Holy Spirit instead of the ego. All it takes is willingness. So here's what we've discovered today. Your perception isn't the problem. Your insistence on perceiving alone is. You've been trying to see clearly through the ego's eyes, trying to figure out what everything means by yourself, trying to navigate reality with a faulty instrument. And it's been keeping you stuck in suffering, in conflict, in separation. But there's another way. There's someone who sees truly, who knows what everything means, who can show you innocence where you see guilt and love where you see attack. The Holy Spirit doesn't ask you to achieve perfect vision on your own. He doesn't demand that you see clearly before He'll help you. He simply asks for your willingness to admit you don't know, to acknowledge that you might be seeing wrongly, to invite Him to look with you. And in that moment of shared perception, everything begins to shift. Not because the situation changes, but because you're finally seeing what was always true. The freedom of letting the Holy Spirit be your eyes is something you can experience right now, today, in your very next interaction. You don't have to wait until you're more spiritual or more advanced or more worthy. You just have to be willing to say, "Help me see this differently." That simple prayer opens the door to vision. That moment of humility creates space for truth. That willingness to see together instead of alone is what transforms everything. Here's your invitation for today. Choose one moment of shared perception. Just one. Pick a situation that's bothering you, a person you're struggling with, a circumstance that feels overwhelming. And instead of trusting your own interpretation, instead of being certain you know what it means, pause and ask the Holy Spirit to show you how to see it. Don't force anything. Don't try to manufacture a different feeling. Just be genuinely open to seeing something you haven't seen before. That's all it takes. Seeing truly isn't about achieving spiritual vision through effort and striving. It's about seeing together, sharing perception with the one who already sees perfectly. It's about joining rather than separating. It's about admitting you need help rather than pretending you have it all figured out. And when you see with the Holy Spirit instead of the ego, you discover that what you thought was real was only shadows, and what's real has been there all along, waiting for you to be willing to see it. Thank you so much for being here today, for opening your mind to these truths, for being willing to question your perception and invite something deeper. If this resonated with you, if something shifted or opened or became clearer, I'd be so grateful if you'd take a moment to like this video. It truly helps more people find these teachings and discover this path to peace. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I post new videos every single day, continuing our journey through A Course in Miracles, exploring how these principles can transform your daily experience. Share this video with someone who's struggling to see clearly right now, someone who's caught in their own perception and suffering because of it. And I'd absolutely love to hear from you in the comments. What situation in your life are you willing to see differently? What happens when you invite the Holy Spirit to show you another way to look at it? Your experiences and insights create such a beautiful community here, and they help everyone who's walking this path. Thank you for seeing with me today. I'll be here tomorrow with another exploration into A Course in Miracles. Until then, may you remember that you don't have to see alone, and may every moment become an opportunity to share perception with the one who sees only love.